Welcome back to Streaming Media East 2017. I'm Tim Siglin, contributing editor with Streaming Media Magazine. Today I've got with me Catherine Jones of virtualarts.tv.
Yes.
See, I got that one right.
Good.
So tell me what Virtual Arts does.
So Virtual Arts, we have been doing multi-camera live streaming since 2007. So as soon as the live streaming platforms really launched, which was Ustream in March 18th of 2007, I mean Justin of March 18th of 2007 and Ustream about 3 weeks later, I recognized immediately, I used to work in the arts, that was a vibrant future for the performing arts if it was done right. And I've been doing multi-camera live streaming since then.
And it's interesting you mentioned Justin, because we called it live casting back then.
Yes,
right.
But somehow I saw beyond that, and actually, because honestly, live casting, hooray that it began.
Right.
But with all due respect, it's not watchable.
Yeah, I mean, after the first day, you're like, okay, what's
done
happening
with that
now?
But somehow I got it. And what I watched was a 2-person show. Jeff Pulver and Chris Brogan. I don't know if you,
sure.
I was watching their 2-man show.
Jeff was doing a lot of stuff.
Jeff was doing a lot of stuff back then, and I immediately got that, like at the right. And really, it was like within 30 minutes, I went, I kind of stopped a podcast that I was doing literally that day and turned around and 7 months later launched the first multi-camera live stream scripted series. Because I got immediately that, I think because my background in performance was live, that like this done right. And done right is the key word that I will talk about from here to 2085. Done right is incredibly compelling and is a great business model.
So, done right from a production standpoint, from a scripting standpoint?
Well, I would start with production, honestly. Like scripting is a given to me.
Right.
Production, and I am about to be on the Future of Live Streaming panel, and we've done some and we all agreed on many levels. Like live streaming will flourish. Depending on choices that producers choose to make, because you can stream with your iPhone.
Right, absolutely.
And look at your analytics. And that's all I have to say, is look at your analytics. Most people don't. They see that number on the top left-hand corner, which really I wish they'd go, oh, that's my impressions, as opposed to my real analytics, because really what those are impressions.
Right.
But so we'll see what happens.
And it was interesting to me looking at Facebook Live, because I'm not on Facebook, I haven't been on Facebook for almost 2 years. To go
you are
to
right
the,
now.
Yeah, of course. To go to the bottom of the screen and look at the previous recordings and see this sort of graph that you would actually look at like as being half of an audio graph, and then realizing that was the number of people who were viewing at any given time. So it's visual representations of the places that things are interesting within a scripted or even a live event. So what kind of gear were you using back in 2007?
Well, it's interesting. I always tell we're at Streaming Media East, and as actually Streaming Media East that made what I do possible. I had the idea for a multi-camera scripted piece, but I had no idea. I just figured there's got to be a way to make it happen. I came to Streaming Media. Someone said, come look at a TriCaster. And I've actually always used TriCasters. I own a TriCaster. I've always used them. And I've used them because production values matter to me so much, and because creatively, and I will say I have clients who don't have TriCaster budgets, and we use browser-based mixing.
Sure.
And
there's an interesting company. Well, there's an interesting company that's sort of moving in that space.
What? Who?
Blue Frame Technology. Actually, Chris Knowlton, who used to.
I'm on a panel with him in a moment.
Ask him about what they do, because it's not splashy, but you can see where it's going. And if you think about vMix, which has come along after TriCaster, and what they're starting to do and how they were able to do it on laptops, and then to the cloud, what Chris and that group are able to do. You see the inklings of the ability to go anywhere, get your production studio up and running, especially when you, and I know Andrew and the guys at New Tech are looking at the same thing with NDI. I mean, the idea is basically IP cameras grabbed from any phone, any actual camera, other devices that push video, and then being able to virtually actually integrate those into a quality production.
Yes.
So, but for you, as you say, TriCaster is kind of where it is, and you've continued to be.
I've continued to be. I'm open to other things, but when I use browser-based switchers, it limits your creativity, and it limits your creativity partially because you're doing this as opposed to pulling and quite seriously. Like if I want to overlay 4 videos at once because I'm streaming Amanda Palmer live from the Coney Island Amphitheater, and I've got 3 beautiful pictures that I want to combine, and then I want to pull out of that, and then I want to push it back in. I need things to have my fingers on, and it just doesn't work.
It's old school TV switching at its finest, going out across the web.
But to me, Like, this is the things that I'm most proud of. Because we cost something. We cost nothing, but we cost something.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
As opposed to a browser-based thing. And I've had clients go, well, I can do this with my phone. And then 2 hours later come down and go, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. When can we work with you again? Because the experience online, the audience is like saying this is as good as being there, which it isn't for everybody, but it is for somebody. And in some ways it's better because you're not going to see that tight on her hands when you're in the audience, or you're not going to see the way like her chest heaves or something.
So you talked about the future, and one of the things that has concerned me about 4K is it's almost too good quality. I mean, I come out of film 35 where we could soften an image on somebody, but noticed with 2K and 4K that maybe the close up on the hand shows the veins a little too much or something like that. How do we take
That's a good question.
ultra resolution and still make something beautiful as opposed to realistic?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I have an answer for that. I will say when it comes to live, mostly when my clients start talking in 4K, my answer is I will save in 4K for you. I'm not going to stream in 4K for you.
Okay, so you'll archive there.
Yeah, because also, I mean, the options 4K gives us in terms of a post is great.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's always, and I actually haven't thought about the beauty element in the way that you're talking about it. That matters.
It's why Marianne Dietrich and a number of the others in the old days, it was the Vaseline on the filter to be able to soften things down and the like.
Well, now we have our own. Look, I've got my high definition powder on right now.
So what else in sort of the future of live do you see?
Interactivity.
Yeah,
it's all about interactivity. And it's funny, we're about to be on this panel and we're all saying the same thing. There's almost no infighting about it. To me, the reason we do live, the reason I was turned on to live was not because I was watching Chris and Jeff do a show with 2 cameras. It's because in the middle of it, they said, oh, and Catherine Jones is out there. And I went, that was an experience.
Right, sure.
I will never forget it. I mean, it was 10 years ago, but my heart started to beat because I realized this is something new. And this is something where your audience literally becomes a shared part of your experience.
Right, absolutely.
That said, with my clients, it's the thing they resist the most, but it is the thing that is stickiest, that is the most engaging. It is the reason why people come to live. So engagement.
It's theater in the round on a global scale.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. What's interesting about that is, as you say, with the interactivity, I had Gregorian Vassal, whose company Spree was on the panel. Yeah, and one of the things that he said, was they don't want to drive people away from that video stream at all. They want the purchasing to happen within there. And I think it's key and Corey Benke sort of followed up with that, is we got to look at the model of how do we standardize around things that allow us to have as easy a production conversation as we had with closed captioning and line 29 and all those kinds of things. Interactivity still seems to be sort of the Wild West. So how do you, for you, what does interactivity mean?
All of those things. It's funny that you say it's still the Wild West because for 10 years, like 10 years ago, it was clickable video.
Right.
Same idea. Everyone was working on clickable video and it kind of never took off.
Sure.
But we'd spoken earlier, there was a platform that I love called Huzzah, and they handled this beautifully. Everything was on screen, the chat, the selfies, all on screen. And there's all these different ways to handle it, whether there's hardware solutions, there's software solutions. I don't know, does it need to be standardized eventually? I assume that it will be, but right now there's some very exciting software solutions.
And maybe we let the innovation run for a couple of years, see what happens, and then decide. Because visually, I don't think from a storytelling standpoint, we know how to deal with interactivity seamlessly.
I agree. And it's partially also because our videos are still square and 16 by 9.
Right,
they don't necessarily have to be. Like, I was playing with that ideas years ago that were never brought to fruition, but where the video appears in multiple places across your page, and there's actually no reason why it can't, and sometimes it does. Now we're still in there. We're still in a 16 by 9 screen.
Yeah, we probably don't want the Fahrenheit 451 white clown on all the, everywhere around us. But on the other hand, you're right. There isn't any reason to do storytelling across multiple small. It's almost like building video walls into your web browser, if you think about it. So, all right. What else from a future standpoint?
That's the big one to me. Well, it's that, and if there is going to be a future, and I don't mean to be negative about it, but I'm just quite honest. Like, for instance, Facebook came out with a new.
API?
Not a new API, a new standard of something yesterday that they're trying to cut down. Standard of something. They change the rules all the time. They're trying to cut down on people posting still images as a live. Because people will, post a still image as a live stream with polls over them.
Got it.
And they're trying to cut down on that. And the reason they're trying to cut down on that is they think that it depletes the value of live. They're promoting live, but if people start to understand that live is a gimmick, or that live is with yourself. I mean, there are places I've seen. There's actually one of, I think, the best Facebook consumer live streams is done with a cell phone. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. She makes so much money, and it's done with her cell phone, but it's brilliant. But for the most part, I think if that is the direction we move in, people will be bored and will tune out. So I think part of it is like, how do we figure out serious visuals?
One last question about the future of video, live video. Will it be portrait mode or landscape?
Landscape.
Mode? Thank you.
Landscape.
I mean, that's what we all think that are classically trained.
I know.
But the amount of portrait
I have one
video,
caveat. This is my one caveat to that. I have a client who insists on square. And I resisted. And evidently square gets shared more and seen more. And the reason why is because look at our cell phones.
True.
If it's square, you don't have to turn it around.
Either way.
And square is definitely better than vertical because you don't have the space on either side.
Right. You don't have the black bars.
Given my choice, 16:9.
Okay.
But I would. My second choice would be square. Vertical,
Well,
no thank you.
Why not 177 to 1? You know, let's go CinemaScope.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, really.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we, as the computer technology industry, have locked on a 16:9.
I don't either,
And
actually.
There's so much wider palette that you can work with from that standpoint.
But our phones.
True, and
But our
hence
phones.
that was a physical constraint in the building of initial phones, but now it shouldn't be.
And it won't be. Like LG has a phone with a huge screen, and they'll keep moving out.
All right.
So.
The future of video, the future of live, the future of interactivity. If you're here at the show, you can come see the panel in just a few minutes. If not, you can catch the panel live on streamingmedia.com. Thank you again for joining us.